Today, we are looking at some of Scotland's most notorious criminals. 1. Dennis Nilsen. Dennis Nilsen was born in Fraserburgh, Scotland. He had a career in the military and then in 1973 moved to London to become a Met police officer. That same year he resigned and worked as a security guard. By 1974, he was a civil servant and worked in job centres. He went on to murder at least 12 young men and boys between 1978 and 1983. All his murders were committed in the residence he currently lived in. After each murder, he performed a ritual where he bathed and dressed the victim's body. He retained the body for extended periods of time before disposing of the remains. He also attempted to kill 7 others. The majority of Nilsen's victims were homeless or gay men. Others were heterosexual. People he typically met were in bars or public transport or one-off occasions outside his home. He lured his victims by offering shelter or alcohol. In February 1983, there was a complaint made by residents. There was a response, and after lifting a drain covering, the discovery of bones and flesh was found. They were confirmed to be human, and it was found that they were flushed down from Nilsen's flat. Officers went into his flat where they reported on the smell immediately. They asked him what else could be found in his flat and he responded, "It's a long story. It goes back a long time. I'll tell you everything. I want to get it off my chest. Not here, at the police station." In the car, the police asked Nilsen, were the remains of 1 or 2 people? He replied, 15 or 16, since 1978. Nilsen was charged with murder on the 11th of Feb. Police interviewed Nilsen on 16 separate occasions over the following days, in interviews which totalled over 30 hours. Nilsen was brought to trial on the 24th of October 1983. He was charged with 6 counts of murder and 2 attempted murders. He pleaded not guilty. He was found guilty of all charges and was sentenced to life imprisonment with a min term of 25 years. Following his conviction, he was transferred to Wormwood Prison. Whilst there, he had his own cell and mixed freely with other inmates. In December 1983, he was attacked, resulting in 89 stitches. He spent some time at Parkhurst Prison, but was transferred to Wakefield. By 1991, he was transferred to Full Sutton Prison, as there were concerns for his safety. In 1994, he was given a whole life order. He was transferred to Whitemoor Prison, but then went back to Full Sutton in 2003. While in prison, Nilsen translated books and spent much of his free time reading and writing. He was allowed to paint and compose music. He also exchanged letters with numerous people who wanted to contact him. It's suspected that the true number of victims may be around 15, and 7 of his victims still remain unidentified. He died at York Hospital on the 12th of May 2018 following a surgery. 2. Angus Sinclair. Angus Sinclair was born in Glasgow, Scotland. By the age of 16 in 1961, Sinclair was convicted of murdering his 7-year-old neighbour, Catherine Rehill. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison and served 6 behind bars. In 1978, he killed 17-year-old Mary Gallagher in Glasgow, but was not convicted of that crime until 2001. Detectives also suspect he has murdered around 4 more women in Glasgow, but they did not have enough evidence to charge him. In October 1977, Christine Eady and Helen Scott, both aged 17, were murdered after leaving the World's End pub in Edinburgh. Despite police efforts, no person was charged. In October 2003, the case was displayed on Crime Watch. The police received 130 calls from new witnesses. They enlisted the help of the Forensic Science Services as they had one unknown DNA sample from the crime. On the 25th of November 2004, Angus Sinclair, who lived in Edinburgh at the time of the murders, was detained in connection. Mouth swabs were taken for analysis, and on March 31st he was charged with the murders and the Rs of both girls. He made no plea. His trial began in August 2007. It alleged that on the night of the 15th and 16th of October 1977, Sinclair and Gordon Hamilton, Sinclair's brother-in-law who had since died, persuaded or forced the girls into their car and held them against their will. Sinclair pleaded not guilty to and murder. His defense said Sinclair had no case to answer to, as there was insufficiency of evidence. The judge upheld the defense submission of no case to answer and acquitted Sinclair. Sinclair was already in prison, serving life imprisonment. 5 years after the World Ends murders, he pleaded guilty to 11 of 13 charges of and indecent assault committed against young girls, and in 2001, while still in prison, he was given another life sentence for the murder of 17-year-old Mary Gallagher. There was outrage following the dismissal, but on the 14th of November 2014, Angus Sinclair was found guilty of murdering Helen Scott and Christine Eady. Sinclair was sentenced to life imprisonment with a min term of 37 years. The 73-year-old Sinclair was incontinent and bedbound following a series of strokes. He died in his cell on the 11th of March 2019. 3. Ian Brady. Ian Brady was born in Glasgow. He carried out the Moors murders along with his girlfriend Myra Hindley between July 1963 and October 1965 in and around Manchester. They took the lives of 5 children: Pauline Reed, John Kilbride, Keith Bennett, Leslie Ann Downey and Edward Evans, aged between 10 and 17, at least 4 of whom were SA'd. Their bodies were found in the moors. Bennett's body is also thought to be buried there, but despite repeated searches, it remains undiscovered. The pair received life sentences and whole life orders. In 1987, Hindley had stopped claiming her innocence and confessed to all of the murders. She died in 2002, aged 60, after serving 36 years in prison. Ian Brady was diagnosed as a psychopath in 1985 and confined in high-security Ashworth Hospital. He made it clear that he wished never to be released and repeatedly asked to be allowed to die. He died in 2017 at Ashworth, aged 79, having served 51 years. 4. Peter Tobin. Scotsman Peter Tobin served 10 years in prison for the robbery and indecent assault of 2 girls in 1993 while he lived in Portsmouth. He was released in 2004. 3 years after his release, he was sentenced to life with a min term of 21 years for the and murder of Angelica Cluck in Glasgow in 2006. Following this, the remains of 2 teenagers who went missing in 1991 were found at his former home in Kent. Tobin was convicted of the murder of Vicky Hamilton in December 2008, resulting in his min sentence being increased to 30 years. He was then convicted of the murder of Dina McNichol in December 2009 and was handed a whole life order. Tobin has been linked to 6 other disappearances or murders. There was also speculation that he could be the unknown serial killer Bible John. 3 women were murdered in Glasgow in the 1960s: Patricia Docker, Jemima MacDonald and Helen Potok. The results of an analysis proved that the semen was not sourced from Tobin. He served his sentence at Edinburgh Prison, and on the 8th of October 2022, at the age of 76, he died. His ashes were scattered at sea after no relatives or next of kin claimed his body. 5. Robert Black. Robert Black was born in Scotland and moved in and out of foster and care homes. He was SA'd by a male staff member for 3 years. In 1963, Black attacked a 7-year-old girl. He was arrested the next day. A psychiatric examination suggested that the incident was an isolated one. In 1966, Black's landlords discovered he had been severely inappropriate with their 9-year-old granddaughter whenever she visited their household. They evicted him, but they did not inform the police. Black lost his job soon after, and he returned to Scotland, where he lodged with a married couple who had a 6-year-old daughter. Within a year, Black's landlords informed the police that he had SA'd their daughter. He pleaded not guilty to 3 counts of indecent assault against a child and was sentenced to a year. 6 months after his release, he moved to London, where he got a job as a lifeguard. He was soon fired for fondling a young girl. No charges were brought. With a contact he met at King's Cross bookshop, him and this contact exchanged CP. He then got a job which was more stable as a delivery driver across Europe. This enabled him good knowledge of the roads and to commit murders in various parts of the UK and possibly Europe. His first murder that is proven to have been committed was that of 9-year-old Jennifer Cardy in Northern Ireland. His second confirmed murder was 11-year-old Susan Clare in Maxwell, who lived on the English side of the Anglo-Scottish border. Then 5-year-old Caroline Hogg, who disappeared in Edinburgh. The police linked the murders and concluded it was a long-distance driver due to the locations. He then murdered 10-year-old Sarah Jane Harper from Leeds. Black was arrested in the village of Stow in the Scottish borders on the 14th of July 1990, as he was spotted kidnapping a 6-year-old child. On the 19th of May 1994, Black, who pleaded guilty, was found guilty of 3 counts of kidnapping, 3 counts of murder and 3 counts of preventing the lawful burial of a body. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with a min term of 35 years on each of the 3 murder charges. He was sent to Wakefield Prison. But on the 15th of December 2009, Robert Black was summoned to appear in Northern Ireland to answer charges relating to the 1981 murder of Jennifer Cardy. He was charged the following day and handed another life sentence. Robert Black appealed against his convictions, but they were rejected. Black never admitted the responsibility in any of the murders, and he refused to cooperate with investigators. Black has been linked to at least 14 further child murders and disappearances across the UK, Ireland and Europe, committed between 1969 and 1989. Black died of a heart attack at Maghaberry Prison in Northern Ireland on the 12th of January 2016, aged 68. 6. Peter Manuel. Peter Manuel was an American-Scottish serial killer. He was convicted of murdering 7 people across Scotland between 1956 and 1958. It's believed that he has murdered 2 to 3 more people. On the 11th of July 1958, he was hanged on the gallows at Barlinnie Prison. His last words are reported to have been, "Turn up the radio and I'll go quietly." Thanks for watching. Until next time.